Charney, and I'm running for District 7 State Board of Education, which includes Ashtabula, Trumbull, Portage, parts of Summit and Lake County, and also Geauga.
Tell me the duties of the State Board of
The
Education.
State Board of Education makes all the rules and regulations having to do what goes on in schools and classrooms across Ohio. It also determines who can become a teacher, and also hires and fires the state superintendent of public instruction. It also investigates problems in the schools and carries out rules and regulations after the Ohio General Assembly passes laws that have to do with education.
Do you like the direction the board is headed at this time?
The State Board of Education is not living up to its real possibilities in educational leadership. First, it has approved and carried out an over-reliance on high-stakes testing that really denies children a well-rounded education, punishes students, and punishes teachers and schools. Secondly, it has run away from its responsibilities to have oversight over for-profit charter schools, especially those that are called online for-profit charter schools. In Ashtabula County alone, there are no brick-and-mortar charter schools, even though Ashtabula City Schools is losing $900,000 a year to these online for-profit charter schools. And they do such a poor job of educating their students. When I went around the district listening to teachers, I found out that often students like the free computer, but only stay in this online for-profit charter school for a year. They come back, have learned little, and need all this extra help. So the State Board of Education really has shirked its responsibility to the taxpayers, to students, to teachers, and also to parents and superintendents.
Mr. Charney, what would you do if you were elected to the board?
Well, the first thing I would stop this over-reliance on high-stakes testing. I talked to superintendents throughout District 7 and found out that sometimes up to 25 days a year is devoted to some form of standardized testing. That must stop, because what it does is it drives out the teaching of subjects that aren't tested, such as art and music, and in the lower elementary grades, science and social studies. Second, we must rid Ohio from this connection between teacher evaluation, in other words, how they're doing, to the test score growth of their students. What that means is teachers could lose their job if kids don't do well on these standardized tests. And even the National American Statistical Association said you can't evaluate teachers on their test score growth because there are so many other factors that influence what goes on in the classroom. Second, as I mentioned previously, I will shine the light on online for-profit schools that are called charter schools. I would like to go back to what the original charter school law said. That was in 1997, and it said that if we're going to start charter schools in Ohio, they should be uniquely run, they should have a unique way of teaching, and should have a unique curriculum. Instead of these innovative charter schools, we have schools that are nothing more than big businesses, where wealthy millionaires are interested in profits, not necessarily what's best for school children. So those are some of the things that I plan to do, and I have the experience and knowledge to be able to accomplish this. I taught for over 30 years in Ohio's classrooms. I was chosen as both Ohio's Humanitarian of the Year and National Teacher of the Year, and I also spent 25 years being married to the leading education policymaker in Ohio, who served on the Ohio Board of Education, the Ohio General Assembly, and ended her career as Ohio Senate Minority Leader. So I'm ready to go to hit the ground running when I'm elected to the State Board of Education in District 7. I think there are two major things that differentiates me from from my opponents for District 7 State Board of Education. First, I have the experience as a classroom teacher, as an award-winning teacher, and as someone that I was so close to policy making that I actually got changes in who becomes a teacher, when a proficiency tests are given, and how to carry out a curriculum across Ohio. But I think also I have a strong and lifelong commitment to public education. I don't think that the major opponent has that same level of commitment, because she is not only 25 years old, but was homeschooled herself. I think I have the pulse of superintendents and parents and teachers, so that I'll be able to have a whole different approach to defend public education, to provide oversight for these online for-profit schools, and also know everything that's going on in Ohio's classrooms. I think that my opponent is very well-meaning, very informed, but at the same time, I think particularly some of her supporters have very extreme views about education. I think that there's not a commitment to making sure that all kids are prepared for the 21st century by learning what's necessary in science and math. Some of her supporters are so angry about government that they don't understand that public education is the centerpiece of democracy, and we have to make sure that traditional public schools, where over 90% of the students attend, need our unqualified support. That doesn't mean that public schools don't make mistakes. We can't shy away from making a full-blown commitment to defending and supporting public education. Too often, teachers are being attacked, public schools are seen as just government schools, when in fact, public education is the centerpiece of democracy. It has led to hundreds of millions of people entering the middle class over 2 centuries of support. And this is no time to say we need alternatives to public education. We must make sure that all children receive a well-rounded education, and not just one that is either watered down or is not having all the types of subjects that they can make school an exciting place to attend, not just a place of testing and mind-numbing instruction.
How do you feel about parents losing control of their children's education?
Well, I think parents should have obviously the right to choose their child's school, or whether it's in homeschooling or in private school. What I'm concerned about is that seductive term, parental school choice, has been hijacked by those who would like to privatize education. There's one thing to choose your own school by a parent. It's another when hundreds of millions of dollars are being taken away from public schools, resulting in higher class size, the destabilization of public schools by having fewer teachers and fewer bus drivers, when all this money is being drained. So there's a big difference between parental choice and taking away public tax dollars that hurts taxpayers and really doesn't actually improve education, but hurts the day-to-day life of public school students across Ohio. As I mentioned, I traveled over 2,000 miles listening to public school teachers, principals, curriculum directors, superintendents. And my saddest afternoon was when I visited teachers at Lakeside High School. As you all know, this is a brand new high school. So I walk into the library, see a group of teachers, and said, "What a beautiful high school. What a beautiful librarian." And they stopped me and said, "Michael, we have a great library, but we cannot afford a librarian." And I found out that 6 out of the 7 public school districts in Ashtabula County don't have a certified librarian in their high school. And then I did my research and found out that Ashtabula City Schools is losing $900,000 a year to online for-profit charter schools. Conneaut, $500,000. Geneva, between $400,000 and $700,000. So this drain of funds is leading to teachers and students not having the basic necessities. Can you imagine not having a certified librarian, but a brand new school, because the funds came from a separate line item that has to do with school facilities. So that's really motivated me to stand up for, we got to rein in these online for-profit schools, and we got to make sure kids have the basic stuff. We can't just substitute this idea of local control and not having the correct ratios of librarians and nurses and school counselors that some people who are so enamored in local control would actually have. So that's some of my motivation for running for State Board of Education.
How did you document money lost to these online schools, and where are they coming from?
Oh.
These online schools at?
Maybe some of you have seen these TV commercials that are run for groups called ECOT, the Virtual Academy, and they're very neat. They show a nice kid at home working on a computer with individualized instruction, but underneath that, what isn't really revealed is the poor performance of these online charter schools, the number of kids who come for a year and leave, and the fact that your tax dollars, my tax dollars, are being used for this advertising. Can you imagine what would happen in terms of what the taxpayers would think if Ashton Bueller or Pymatooning or Geneva actually advertised on TV to say, come to my school? People would be up in arms. But that's how the lay of the land works, because these online for-profit charter school operators have a great deal of influence in the Ohio General Assembly. They give campaign contributions, they know some of the people who make the laws, and they don't have a level playing field. What I mean by that is they don't have to have the same rules as school districts who are publicly funded, even though they get public money. And that, nor is there any transparency. In other words, where the money is going to, and even more importantly, who's making these decisions. Because these are out-of-state companies that say, I'm a private corporation. Once I get the public money, I don't have to be as open as public school districts, which have all sorts of rules, so the public justifiably can know where the money is going and who's making those decisions and how do they make those decisions. The election for the State Board of Education is so different than all elections. I've been told by election experts that it's the most challenging race to run and to win. The reason is it's 3 state Senate districts, 1.2 million people in 6 different counties, and very few people even know there's a state board, let alone know that there are elected members on the state board. 11 are elected, 8 are appointed by the governor, and it's a nonpartisan race. So you can't just depend on the D's and the R's when you go into that poll. That's why I've been campaigning 7 days a week since March, speaking before all different kinds of people, parents and teachers and superintendents, and Democratic Party groups, labor unions, and in churches. And I've been endorsed by all the teacher organizations, all the labor organizations, and women's organizations, and the Democratic Party. It's a nonpartisan race, but I'm the only Democrat in the race. The other three people are registered Republicans. So, as you watch this, I hope you will consider Michael Charney for District 7 State Board of Education, the experienced, knowledgeable, and dedicated candidate to defend and promote public education.